We won't be traveling too far for this episode of Backroad Journal, as we'll meet up with a few key members of the local Kandiyohi County chapter of Pheasants Forever. We'll talk about the governor's visit to Willmar recently at the Pheasants Forever State Convention hosted by the chapter at the Willmar Conference Center. We'll also discuss everything from banquets to buffer strips. I'm Dave Hillenbrand, and this is Backroad Journal. Let's talk first about the state convention.
Well, so the state convention is something that happens every year in Minnesota, but it gets moved around to different cities throughout Minnesota. It's been in the past at Mankato, St. Cloud, it's been in the metro. We've had it in Willmar before, but this year was kind of special because it was something that the governor decided that he wanted to attend, and we had some interesting environmental topics to discuss, and it was maybe a little bit bigger from that perspective, but there were still around 250 people that were invited to come. Typically it's the chapters that come. It's not usually an open to the public event, and it gives the opportunity for the chapters to get together and do a lot of networking, see what else is going on out there the different chapters are doing, and it's an opportunity for the National PF to recognize the chapters and the volunteers for the work that they do, Chapter of the Year, Banquet of the Year, Volunteer of the Year, as well as give out some awards to the staff at PF about the good work that they do as well.
What were some of the other things that maybe you guys attended?
Jim and Kevin were going.
Yeah, they kind of set it up. Friday is more of a meeting day for staff and state staff, national staff, but then Saturday is they have breakout sessions all day. And the ones I sat in on was hunter attraction and retention that the DNR sponsored. How do we get kids, how do we keep them, and adults for that matter, involved in outdoor activities, that kind of thing. The other one was social media, how to use social media to basically keep and attract people, keep our membership informed, get new people involved, that kind of thing. But they had sessions on pollinators. That's kind of the hot thing right now, is the pollinators, how to get projects going for that. Sessions on leadership, chapter leadership, how to work with your committee, banquet ideas, things like that. And Kevin, I'm not sure which ones you sat in. We try to get our guys going to different meetings.
I sat in on a couple of the different grant ones as far as different options that are available to help out with the different programs that we're doing out here. There's these pollinator programs, which is a very good one right now, that is really pushing the environment situation and getting kids involved, the different youth groups, schools, whatever, and by the process of having these pollinator programs, they serve as a science classroom for the future. And hopefully they'll continue to do these where you can keep adding to these different pollinator projects, because you can only do a couple of acres at a time. So it's kind of a chapter cost versus input by grants from PF and stuff that help out. So.
And so for people that might not know, why would pollinators, why is that an important thing? Why would PF care about pollinators? How does that kind of play together?
That is huge. It ties into everything that we're all about in conservation, because it's not only putting habitat on the ground that is the best habitat you can get with all the flowering plants and stuff, but it's terrific bee habitat, it's terrific bird, all kinds of bird habitat. It's clean water situation. I mean, it boils down to everything that we're all about. So and getting kids involved.
Are there any programs in our area that kids might be involved with the pollinators? Because I know that was there a program that PF did recently?
So we worked with Alex Nelson in the previous year for a project that was done up at the New London School District. They had what was it, 14 acres? Does that sound about
Something
right?
like that, yeah.
Where they actually had kids come out and throw the wild seed down and did a little prep work of the ground. That was a little bit of a quicker project. They didn't have as much time to work through it, but they worked with a school teacher, and their classroom did the majority of the work. We funded it, and were able to get some grant dollars back for it. But it's key to remember that when they talk about pollinators, it's every living animal or insect that pollinates another. Whether it be a tree, a plant, flowering plant, whatever, all of those animals and insects create more of that same vegetation as they pollinate another living thing. So it's good for the birds. Birds move the seeds around, replant. The bugs keep the plants alive by doing what they do. And so we're not just supporting pheasants, we're supporting habitat and the things that create that habitat. So that's why the pollinator projects are really the biggest thing. We're losing a native prairie rapidly. Just saw some information the other day that less than 1% of Minnesota's land is still native prairie, which is very hurtful to all of this. And the pollinator projects are doing what they can to support and bring back a little bit of that. We'll never be able to get back to native prairie, but we'll be able to reproduce some of it to help continue the process of the habitat that we need for all the things that we do. And it's not just Pheasants Forever, it's all organizations that support habitat, that support wildlife, that support our outdoor activity.
You know, and just to interject, while, you know, the conservation side of it is obviously key and critical, a big part of this whole thing, I think, is education. You know, people are 3 generations off the farm now, and you know, they don't know where chickens come from. They don't know where milk comes from. They don't get it. And I know Sibley Park just did a pollinator project last fall. I think they seeded it. And they had I just saw some emails flying around this morning, 150 youth and adults were involved in reseeding a pollinator project out at Sibley State Park that hopefully in a year or two we'll get some really good visibility out at the park there. But yeah, a big piece of this is connecting kids to this. Get their hands dirty, let them see what it's all about, so they can make that connection. You know, you go to these meetings and it's a lot of gray hair and bald spots. So, you know, we got to get these kids plugged into this stuff, or we're in real trouble in 10, 15, 30, 50 years. You know, we're just going to get further and further from it. So,
what are some of the other ways that maybe the local chapter gets involved with youth activities and things like that? Anybody want to comment on that?
Yeah, we've go ahead, Kevin.
No, you've been a youth person. You take it.
Well, we've developed, you know, projects over the years and tried different activities to attract kids and get them involved. But we've got members. We have an ongoing commitment to the hunter education program, the certified DNR instructors, and we do 3 to 4 firearms safety classes a year for the kids to get them certified so they can go out and do those outdoor activities. We have a youth day at the Environmental Learning Center. We've always had a big connection and commitment to Prairie Woods, both financially and on a volunteer side, to help them out and again, connect youth to the outdoors. And the youth trap shoot out at the Willmar Trap Club is a cooperative effort with, you know, over the years groups have come and gone through it that have helped us. The Trap Club, of course, is huge in it. Pheasants Forever, Minnesota Waterfowl, Ducks Unlimited, Deer Hunters have been in the Isaac Walton League. So all these different groups are partnering and coming together. And, you know, we get 100+ kids out there for a day in August, a Saturday. Some of them are new to it. Some of them are involved in the state clay target leagues. We have different activities, you know, give them a hot dog lunch, that kind of thing. And, you know, it's all about just, you got to get them engaged more than once to keep them getting in an activity that's going to be a lifelong hobby or so for some of them a career, you know.
In addition to some of the breakout sessions, was there anything else that you guys maybe individually or collectively took away from the state convention?
Well, the clean water issue is huge. There's no doubt about that. It's a real kind of touchy subject, you know, right now. Hopefully between the landowners and the conservation groups and our people that are down at state level, national level, whatever, hopefully they can work together to do something about the water issues, because it's going to be huge down the road. I mean, it's bad now, where we're having a lot of this pollutants going into our creeks and lakes and everything, and as a whole, it isn't. And I shouldn't say just landowners, it's also our communities, because our communities are just as bad about dumping stuff into these ditches and stuff. So it's going to have to be a cooperative effort to try and do something to start bringing this back around the other way, so that we can all enjoy the water, you know, as we used to for fishing, swimming, and drinking, which is going to be real huge down the road here. It already is in a few communities. They're having some real issues already. So, no, I guess that was the biggest thing that he brought out of that. And as far as those buffers, of course, that's hopefully that's something, again, that they can all work together on. I'd like to see it, you know, personally, not even as a PF type thing, where they would leave them alone until at least August 1st if they are going to mow them or something, because it's huge for the birds and stuff that are nesting and so forth.
Probably the biggest thing about all of that is the education around it, and finding out that maybe the landowners don't realize what options that they have, and that it doesn't necessarily need to be a 16.5 or a 50-foot piece of land that they can't utilize for something. You know, we like to see it there for habitat. We like to see it there for clean water. It makes a huge difference when it comes to runoff off the farm fields, and the chemicals that come off the fields get filtered by that buffer strip before they enter the ditch and then into the water system. You know, I've had experiences where I've been to different lakes, especially in the metro area, where the blue-green algae is blooming from the summer, and it's a direct result of the you know, the chemicals that we use throughout not only the farmlands but the communities as well. We all need to be conscious of that. You know, we all have to make sure that we're thinking about what happens down the road, not necessarily just what's coming out of our tap, but what happens to the disposable and waste things that we produce, and what does that do for the next community down the road as well. If we ruin our water supplies, if we ruin our lakes and streams, we cut off a vital leg in the tripod stool that we all sit on, and I don't think people realize how important it is. So, you know, for conservationists, maybe for us, for PF, sure, we're strong supporters of having buffer strips. We also understand that people need to work together to get to a common ground. At least from the state perspective, they're able to look at this and still do it on state-owned land and properties. It's just getting the landowners educated so they understand what their options are. You know, if I was a landowner, I wouldn't want somebody telling me what I had to do either. I can certainly understand that, but I would like to have my options explained to me. And if in the end I still don't feel that's necessary, maybe we can get 50% of the landowners to understand that that's just that much more cleaner water and for the environment. So it's just a work in progress. You know, there's always extremes to everything you do, one end of the needle versus the other. We want to try to get people halfway in between, and if we can do that, we can make a great effort in the world of habitat, clean water, and education.
You know, and to piggyback that, I think the biggest thing I got out of this year's was education and partnerships. Mm-hmm. You know, educating on people on why do we need these practices or these conservation methods, and number two, how do we get there? Starting at the grassroots level with the landowners, the local chapters, guys like us who are out talking to these guys, the local agencies, soil and water, DNR, Fish and Wildlife, all the way up to, legislators in Washington. How do we get this to work? I mean, some of these issues we're at a tipping point, in our history of can get really good or it can get really bad here in the next 25 years. So, like I say, that's the theme that I kept hearing this weekend was we got to educate people and we got to partner to make this happen. Nobody wants to be told what they have to do. I mean, that's human nature. You don't tell me what to do, but ask me how we can do it. Get them participating in it, get their opinions, and so I think that's what I got out of this last weekend more than anything.
And I think the evidence is there. I think there's tangible, feelable, visual processes that we've seen even at this weekend's convention, showing of pictures of aquifers that have gone bad because of chemicals in the water system, and how that over time creates the silt effect and issues with water quality. So it's not something that we're just talking about. A lot of people have a hard time understanding the gas effects, the losing the ozone and all that kind of stuff. It's not as tangible, but when you can see the water quality in pictures, when you can visually see it by being there yourself, hear the stories about what this used to look like versus what it looks like now, or even the ones that have actually been through the process and have been restored and what can be done. You have that ability to say the dollars that we can put forth, the efforts that we've put forth can make a difference. We just need to all get on the same bus, if you will, and make that process happen so we don't lose these areas. We can fix it. We just need to take the time to do it and get the understanding and the backing to get it done.
When the governor spoke, it didn't seem like he was necessarily discouraged, but that it was more a bump in the road. That's okay. We're going to figure this out. We'll work together and move forward. Would you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, my personal feeling is when the initiative came out, obviously you shoot for the stars and you're not going to get there, but there's going to be give and take through the whole process. That's just the political system. I mean, that's the way it works. So, and I think he had just kind of gotten the news on it like everybody else saw in the paper that morning about it, and sure he was disappointed, but he realized it's a give and take, and it's not over by any stretch for good or bad, but I mean, he was, I think, disappointed, but understands that it's just part of the process. And it's the biggest thing that we've seen since the initiative came out is the discussions are out there. People are talking about it. That's how you start a movement. You got to have people talking about it to get things rolling. So.
Well, I think as far as our PF field biologists, that's the tie-in. Those are the guys that are on the front lines. Those are the guys that are really there to help bridge that gap, to show the landowners what options are available. There's many different programs out there that they can get involved in as far as a payment back to them to be able to turn this into the CRPs or as far as these buffers now that they're talking and so forth. So they're the real leg, and the more we can put on the ground of those people in different areas, the better that communication is going to be.
Well, and on that, I mean, I think the biggest misconception maybe about what Pheasants Forever and the agencies do is they just want to take prime farmland and turn it into grass. Well, that's not the reality. They know it can't happen that way. This is marginal land, erodible land, critical drainage pieces, things like that. They're trying to focus their dollars where they're going to get the most bang for their buck. Like I say, we realize you're not going to buy 5,000 acres of land in Renville County and turn it into grass. It's just not going to happen anymore. But you take those little pieces where you get your biggest impact with the small grounds that you're getting. So again, education. You gotta get people understanding that, and I honestly don't see farmers being adversarial to this. They get it. I mean, it's their land. They get it. They want to do the right thing.
Some of our biggest supporters are actually farmers and landowners, that come in and be part of that banquet and spend dollars there, knowing that our local PF chapters put that money back into the ground. Really, I think everybody in their own right is conservationist friendly and minded. It just has to be a balance that everybody can handle and what they can afford to do or not afford to do. And you know, with prices of grains going up, corn prices going up, that's when you started seeing the farmers having to till their land from edge to edge. And buffer strips at that point meant to them big dollars. The education piece of that is important because maybe it's that understanding of what is marginal land and really how much are you getting out of that 50-foot or 16.5-foot buffer strip, and what good is that doing versus what good it could do for the environment. It's just get that understanding. I think a lot of times now, and you know, I haven't been through the agricultural training, but from what I've heard and understanding and talking to the folks that I deal with in PF, the education of kids going to school to become or be part of the agriculture community are starting to get that as part of their training. You know, they understand that that's the environmental piece of it. It's not just what the family did for 50 years. It's more of an educational process. You can get a degree in agriculture. So I think as time goes on, the kids that maybe are going through these training programs are getting a little bit different of an education, so maybe the education itself won't be such a leap for them to understand the needs for this.
Are there any projects right now that in our area that maybe someone can say, you know, what does PF do with their money and where does it go? And
Yeah.
Well, one of the biggest things going on right now is that whether it be U.S. Fish and Wildlife, whether it be the DNR, whatever, there's a lot of emphasis right now on reworking a lot of the land that's out there right now because of the old brome grasses and stuff. So they are taking and reworking a lot of these lands now to put it into a lot more of the more native prairie type grasses. And that's going to be huge, not only for the wildlife that lives there, but the pollinators, you know, the butterflies, any of the pheasants, the ducks, whatever, they need those insects, and that's directly related to the flowering plants, which is your native prairies and stuff. So, no, there's a lot more emphasis put back on that right now too, and you're going to see a lot of that around right now where they're going to be working on that. Same way with some people have problems with some of this tree removal, but in the open prairies, that's a must, you know, to facilitate not having the predators being a problem from above and so forth. So that's kind of a give and take there.
In Minnesota here, we're in such a great situation right now with the Lessard Sam's money, or the tax money, if you will. The funds that are available for outdoor, you know, parks and trails, arts, whatever it is, the money that's available from that has just been huge, and we're seeing a lot of good projects going on the ground because of that, plain and simple. The money Kevin was talking about for management of these state lands and federal lands, a lot of that is cost sharing between, you know, Pheasants Forever, the Lessard money, NACA grants, different things, and again, partnerships, you know. We actually, Kandiyohi PF just completed an acquisition. Well, I don't think it's done yet. It's a long, arduous process, but 140?
Yeah, maybe
140 some acres,
Yeah,
southeast of Atwater
Yeah.
there. That will be eventually turned over to the DNR for a wildlife management area. So, but yeah, just a lot of great projects going on, and it's good to see the management of what we've got. You know, everybody thinks new land is the answer. Well, maybe better land is the answer. Manage what we've got efficiently, and you know, of course, land acquisition is what the members like to see, and you know, just to go back to what PF is all about, I think that's why it's such a successful model, is because these dollars that, you know, businesses across the street here are donating, everything stays within chapter control that they donate at our banquet or our youth events, whatever, every dollar they donate to our chapter stays here for our board to make decisions on and how to use it and where to put it in the ground. So, you know, they see the projects going on and they see the activities that their money is sponsoring. So, you know, huge thank you to the community for their support for that. So.
And one of our biggest sellers is telling them that over 90 cents of every dollar that's spent goes back into the ground or into an activity from PF. It doesn't go to pay salaries at the national level. It goes back into the ground. So over 90 cents of every dollar goes back. And we're the only habitat organization that can say that.
That's unheard of.
Unheard of.
Yeah.
We're an envy of the nation. I mean, we hear this from all the U.S. Fish and Wildlife people and the DNR people that go to other states for meetings. They said they can't believe that you people, that your state, that your citizens care so much, you know, about
Something they
clean
never
water.
thought would pass
Right.
by 60%
Right.
margin.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and
it's
so
a testament.
that's a plus to the people of this state that they're backing that, and hopefully they'll continue to do that.
Tell me about the chapter, a little bit of the history. Kevin and I are actually talking a little bit that really Kandiyohi County chapter is at number 2, is that right? Is actually the first chapter to start, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
First outstate chapter, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
The actual first chapter was
Well,
St. Paul.
Yeah.
They call it that.
They call it.
We consider us number one, but
The first banquet outstate was held out
that's
here.
correct.
The
Yep.
stories talk about, was it 1982, where some local guys got together in the
Yeah.
basement of their house and started talking about conservation efforts, and somebody brought up something called Pheasants Forever and thought that they could run with it. And we are the first outstate chapter, and we like to say we're really the first chapter. We got it started.
The first project was
First
done out
project,
here.
first banquet,
land project,
all of that.
yeah.
So
And some of those guys that were in on that 30 years ago still come to our banquet, help out on the committee from time to time. So, you know, that's a lifelong deal for a lot of these guys.
Who were the chapter founders? Do you remember?
Oh,
You know,
locally,
I thought about
Doug
bringing that. I thought about
Levander,
bringing that list in. There's a couple of the Flattaboys.
Lee
There was
Worsham was
Lee
involved in
Worsham.
there.
Okay.
What's his name that owned Greg?
Oh, Merrick, yeah.
Everett Peterson or Gary Peterson?
No, I'm
Um,
blanking.
Dalton
Dalton Johnson.
was one of them. There was a couple of Hansons, I think, that were in there of some.
Because Dennis Anderson had some
Yeah.
ties out here to family
Right.
and friends, and that's kind of where the catalyst was with
And
him.
he
these
writes
guys.
about that quite often.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, so that was great. Those guys had that kind of foresight, you know, and it, man, did it take off.
What does a chapter look like now compared to, obviously way back then it was pretty small, but what are some of the pride and joys of this chapter right now? I mean,
Well, we as far as banquet committee guys, we probably have a group of 12 to 15 of us that are pretty regular. When we have our banquet itself, like these guys said, we have some people that kind of come out of the woodworks that have been part of the committee for many years that are just more active when it comes to banquet time. And when we have a need for a special project or whatever, you know, we tend to get more guys that come out with chainsaws or doing whatever. There's a core group of us that have been around for a while. Of course, these two guys have been around way longer than I have.
What are you trying to say?
Yeah, so you know, we're still looking for new blood. We still are trying to do things to get more enthusiasm. This last 2 years, we probably brought in the most people we have in a long time to become part of the chapter. We're actually working with and tagging into the local Ducks Unlimited group as well. Some of us have crossed over to become duck heads as well as pheasant heads. But we're doing some group meetings together and getting out and having some fun because they tend to grab a younger crowd. Duck hunting apparently is a little bit more popular with the younger teenage crowd, maybe the high schoolers and the college kids. We tend to have a little bit of an older group of following, but everybody seems to pheasant hunt, everybody seems to duck hunt a little bit here and there. So we thought it'd be great to get them together. So, you know, at least once a year we're pulling both of our committees together, going out and shooting clay targets, having a steak dinner, and just having some camaraderie between both of them. And out of that, we pulled in a couple new members, and that was kind of our hope. So we are doing that. It's also good to know that Chapter 2 is over the $3 million mark. as far as land acquisition dollars spent. And we're one of the top chapters out there to do that. It was nice to see this past weekend. We've even got some chapters that are at the $6 million mark. And we'll get there. We're not a large chapter when it comes to the dollars that generate compared to maybe some of the others. But our banquet does well every year. Talking to some of the other banquets, they were impressed to hear what we were able to pull in or net from these. And I was impressed to hear what some of the others are able to do. We've got a lot of work ahead of us too. There's things that we could do better, like getting corporate sponsors to come in and help us support that banquet so even more of the dollars could stay as a net. But that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort from volunteers that are doing this, maybe a couple times a month where we're getting together. It's for sure a once a month meeting. And then when the banquet starts, we're meeting weekly to make sure we have a good banquet. And I don't think we've disappointed anybody yet. And we get some really good support from the local business community as well. So we just want to keep fostering that and continue to have a good banquet.
One of the newest things and coolest, I think, that's happened in a lot of years, haven't been involved for quite a while, is the last few years is the growth and support of our chapter for the state high school clay target leagues. Brad's got his daughters are involved in it shooting, and I mean these teams are just exploding now, and we've got 4 teams in the county that we're sponsoring, helping them buy supplies, equipment, whatever they come to us for. We do whatever we can to make it happen for them so they can be successful, and I mean, what a great program to get these kids involved in shooting sports, and whether or not they ever hunt, who cares? They're getting involved in the conservation aspect of it, seeing what we do as a group, and hopefully they'll pay that forward down the road more as they get out into the world and start earning money. And
Right.
But yeah, it's been just a cool thing, and
Yeah.
just wonderful to see.
Yeah. And the banquet's coming up, right? It's coming up here in April, is that?
April 2nd, we
Okay.
have our banquet. So I guess we try to reach as many of these people as possible to help us out and so forth. And I guess I'd like to see if there's people out there that definitely would like to donate and help our cause and stuff with this. We'd like to have them contact one of the committee people in that, as far as to see what they can do for us and what we can do for them.
What are some of the things that go on at the banquet? I know you have a dinner.
We have a complete program where there's they kind of have a social hour type thing ahead of time. People are going around there's silent auction items. There's different games as such that they can take part in, that they can be in on drawings and stuff later, or your paddle wheel and stuff. I mean, and then we of course have awards that are given out. There's and then of course we get into the regular program where stuff's auctioned off and stuff is given away.
Yeah, so Saturday, April 2nd, crowing hour, we call it, starts at 5 o'clock. That's where we all get together and do some networking and play those games as indicated.
Networking, that's what they call it.
That gives us an opportunity to network with the folks that are there and thank them for coming out. Dinner starts at 7 o'clock, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And we always have a great dinner. The convention center here in Willmar does a great job for us. We work together well. And as far as the program goes, depends. We might have somebody from National come out and give a brief presentation on maybe some of the projects that are going on. But we also have a video display of those projects as well as maps and different activities. We also try to get the local trap team, high school trap teams in there to help us out, whether that's maybe carrying general raffle prizes out to the people that have won them, or maybe they're doing a little booth on their own where they're talking about some of the activities that they're up to. And it's great to see that our banquet has become far more family friendly over the years. It's not unheard of to have upwards of 40 to 50 kids there under 18, and a lot of them under 10 or 12. And we try to make sure every kid walks away with something. So they enjoy their night there, and they hear the stories, and they see that it's fun to do this kind of stuff and to talk habitat. And in the end, we're done by 10 o'clock. Everybody's had a great night, and hopefully you've walked away with a good prize.
And if somebody wants more information on like you want to get involved with the chapter, or maybe again, how can they get tickets to the banquet?
We will have them on our website as soon as we get the banquet flyer finalized. That'll be posted there at candypf.com. I think it is, yeah, candypf.com. Or find us on Facebook. The information will be out there as well. Kevin, I don't know if you want to give out your phone number, email here, or that's probably the easiest way for them.
If somebody wants to contact me, that's fine. They can contact me at 320-212-2412 by phone. Email wise, it'd be kjochs@yahoo.com. And yes, we'd be glad to have people contact us.
And we will have tickets, and you'll see flyers up at all the sports shop, but there'll be tickets at Runnings, Mel's, Pete's up in New London, a couple other places. So they'll see the information flyers around, but like I say, the website and Facebook are probably the best places to find the information, and get them to like our site so they can follow our activities and stuff too.